I guess I would say that even if someone wants to manipulate a market, the ultimate goal is that there's enough people that would see it as positive EV to then take the other side and sort of push the odds back. Whether or not you're Trump leaning or not, I think the other side to look at is in crypto, most people are profit maxis. And so you're going to do what's most profitable. And so if you think the odds are too skewed, even if you want Trump to win, it doesn't matter because the prediction market should reflect the implied odds, will reflect obviously the outcome of the election itself. And so you kind of have to take that bias out anyways, because you're either going to win or lose money.
Welcome back, Blockmates podcast. I'm back. We've kicked Jerry off. He's looking after a Blockmates Orange from now on. We got Kyle from Hedgehog Markets. Kyle, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Really good. You said you just got back from Solana. Is it a hacker house or DAO or what was it?
Kind of. Yeah. So it started with I think Mountain DAO was kind of the first to do it. They've actually had I think like 6 different Mountain DAOs, and that's in Salt Lake City in the U.S. And so Island DAO, the first one was actually in Greece. I think earlier this
Oh,
year.
nice.
And so this is kind of like the second iteration of Island DAO. And the idea is it's like a month-long co-working space type setup. So they rented a nice villa in Koh Samui, Thailand, and people can kind of go to the villa house and use that as a co-working space and then do some fun excursions on the weekend. So it's nice to go and build and be able to chat with other people IRL and, do some fun stuff and see other parts of the world.
Man, that's the move. That sounds like a good DAO. Not some of these kind of like, oh god, dwelling in governance forums arguing over like emissions rates and stuff like that. That sounds like the DAO I could get involved with.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time. Great way to just like interact with new people that you may not have spoken to before. They do little presentations there as well, so they'll set up little like side things where you can present about your project, do technical talks, do just like product reviews, UI reviews, that kind of stuff. So yeah, very very helpful and definitely a good time if people are interested in building on Solana or even just a community member. Go hang out, talk to other people, and see what's being built.
Awesome. So you guys are building prediction markets on Hedgehog. Why was this initially of interest for you to kind of get your teeth stuck into?
Yeah, so I guess I have a bit of an interesting backstory. I'll try to keep it quick and, feel free to ask more questions if you want. But my background is in finance. And the first job I actually had was in prop trading. And then I worked in fixed income valuation. And both of those are like very data reliant, news heavy type things. And so I feel like I've just always kind of had an interest in how news and news dissemination and what others know versus what don't how that sort of comes to light publicly, and that's effectively what prediction markets try to aim to solve. It's the idea of financializing the collective knowledge of everybody in a financial way, um, and at the same time pretty much all financial or prediction markets are just betting on things, but it is interesting because you kind of have like, I don't know if insider information is the right word, but if you get information first, the idea is that you can exploit it in an EV positive way. And to go back to your question, I was actually placed on the Hedgehog team from day one. I'm actually not the original founder, but I've been with the product and the team since then, and took over Hedgehog in I think like early to the middle of 2022 is when that transition started.
Awesome. Yeah, like what you're saying about like crowdsourcing, I suppose the not to sound too philosophical, but like crowdsourcing like the pursuit of truth through financial markets. It's like I struggle to wrap my head around how kind of like cool and powerful that is. You're
Mhm.
starting to see it find real product market fit within crypto. What's quite interesting about it is you can kind of set it up in such a way, which I think you guys have, where it doesn't necessarily feel like a crypto app. It feels like it's just serving its purpose of what it's supposed to solve, and then obviously it runs on crypto rails. But do you think like what do you think the additional benefits of it being on crypto rails are? Because you've got, I can't remember what the kind of traditional Web2 competitors, like the big dogs in that space, are called, but
Mhm.
um, for me, it just feels like a natural fit. But I don't know if you've got any kind of like unique insight on that.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, That's exactly kind of our approach, and it's a permissionless approach, which is what crypto enables. Because you have these permissionless blockchains that have payment rails that have the ability for anybody to like interact with anything deployed on those chains without really being able to prevent them from doing so. um, there's definitely benefits and drawbacks to that. But from our perspective, we like the benefits, which is permissionless market creation, permissionless interaction with those markets, and that way you can really bring any, I guess, data that you want to light, interact with anything that's on there. And so, yeah, I think the biggest player, at least in the U.S., is Kalshi. And the way that they're set up is, every market that they make has to be, I think, like its own dedicated like futures contract. So they have to get, permission from, uh, I want to say the CFTC, but whatever
Mhm.
regulatory entities they need to basically to launch a futures contract, and that market then becomes a futures contract. It's kind of my high level understanding of that. Um, and so it's much harder for not only markets to be created, but also for users to participate because I believe you have to be a U.S. citizen, although not 100% on that. But obviously, it's just like if you were to trade stocks and options. You kind of have to do the full KYC process as you would do with a broker or bank or whatever in order to trade those markets. Um, and so, going the permissionless route, we sort of see that as you can, hopefully foster an environment where many more people can, uh, be able to provide their information via, placing bets or deposits on different markets. And the idea that anybody can sort of spin up a market on anything that they want to, whether it's just betting on something or actually find like, okay, what are the more true, I guess, odds of something to happen. And so I think eventually it sort of converges on the truth. But we also see in the past that prediction markets don't always predict things perfectly, but it does reflect, I guess, hopefully all available information at any given time. And I think a lot of people kind of look back at like the last Trump election when he did win, and the odds were favoring Hillary the whole time. And people will say, "Oh, the prediction markets got it wrong." But based on available polling info and what people were looking at, those were the implied odds at the time. And so I don't think prediction markets always have to get it right or have like 80% odds, because the whole point is there are definitely outliers and like edge cases or black swan events that happen, and the odds still should, in theory, reflect those.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to ask you on that. So obviously, crypto allows like that permissionless access to these markets, which could, if you think about it, in localized markets, where whether that be the UK or with like Betfair or something like that, or the US, and you get like these inherent biases within the market participants of kind of siloed areas of the
Mhm.
world or certain demographics and stuff like that. But given the kind of nature of how permissionless like a system like Hedgehog or any prediction market is that isn't run on crypto rails, do you see biases less so? Like, does crypto lean slightly right? Does that reflect in the odds? Like, these are all questions that we've all been asking internally when we've been doing kind of like weekly catch up calls and going through these kind of things. But I don't know if we might be back on the wrong tree there, but there could be something.
Yeah, I think as far as that goes, I think it depends on what someone's agenda is. I remember there were a lot of people talking about how, maybe there's like, you know, Democratic parties that are trying to like sway people's opinions. And so they, will try to push like Kamala up in, the prediction markets in addition to, in like polls. They might run, bias polls in a very small concentrated area where you kind of get those biased results. You report it through the media, and then people, get more euphoric and back stuff. So it's like you're trying to sort of manipulate people, just from how they see those. Maybe they're not participants in a prediction market or a poll, but they see those prediction markets and polls, and it's more of a mental sort of manipulation. Um, I think this kind of goes back to being permissionless and how anybody can participate, even if you might be biased or people say that, within the crypto space, a lot of people are, probably more Trump biased, is at least what it seems based on, sentiment on crypto Twitter and whatnot, based on regulatory items. I guess I would say that even if someone wants to manipulate a market, The ultimate goal is that there's enough people that would see it as positive EV to then take the other side and sort of push the odds back. Whether or not you're Trump leaning or not, I think the other side to look at is in crypto, most people are profit maxis. And so you're going to do what's most profitable. And so if you think the odds are too skewed, even if you want Trump to win, it doesn't matter because the prediction market should reflect the implied odds, will reflect obviously the outcome of the election itself. And so you kind of have to take that bias out anyways, because you're either going to win or lose money. So unless you're trying to, do some other, narrative or manipulate, I guess, how people are viewing and interpreting the data, just on like a day-to-day basis, and are willing to lose money just for optics, um, I think what most people would still agree on is that if it's not an EV positive play, the people will arb that out, or they'll arb it out
Mm.
across different platforms. So I think like there is definitely a benefit to having multiple platforms, having more and more participants, having more and more liquidity, because you might get these short term price movements. But even if it is like hyper localized, there's probably some person that is not trying to just sway sentiment, but are trying to make the most amount of money, and they'll come in and arb it out or just take the other side of it because the odds make sense and it's a positive EV play.
Yeah, I've heard like also people going in, I suppose next month now, given it's 1st of October, to um, even taking the Kamala side on the prediction market between Kamala and Trump as like a, if the markets are going to perceive that as negative, particularly in crypto
Hmm.
markets, they can see that as like a wider hedge against what
Yep.
any short term volatility might happen across
Yeah.
any of the crypto assets at the whole, which is quite an interesting hedge. When I heard them explain that, I was like,
Yeah.
you're batshit crazy, but that actually might work.
Yeah, yeah. I was literally messaging somebody about that yesterday. They were like, how can I get? They were actually saying, how can I get a better payout than just taking effectively, like, the odds have sort of been hovering around 50-50, so you're getting like a 2-to-1 payout. But they were like, how can I get better odds than that? So we were kind of talking about like, are there stocks where you could sort of play options around the election and winnings? But then the question is, is the timing right? How much does that stock actually move after the election? How much correlation is there? And like a prediction market, like this is another benefit that we see, like being able to spin up your own prediction market, or just go to some of these platforms like ours, and being able to participate in these election markets. You can have markets that are directly correlated to a specific outcome, whereas in the stock markets, a lot of times people will speculate on CPI numbers or Fed interest rates by still trading these indexes, but it's not like you don't have direct exposure to that literal interest rate number. Whereas, like, we can have a prediction market that says, will the upper bound of the Fed interest rate after the September meeting be X or be Y, or be inside of a band, and that is, a direct market where you don't really have exposure like that anywhere else.
So, if people are kind of looking at this for the first time, can you kind of just explain how? Let's use a more interesting one. Will Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson? So we've currently got yes 65 cents, no 35 cents. Like what are they buying here? What is like the user journey if they were to put on a yes bet or a no bet, and like what's actually happened here? So like if you were to kind of talk someone through the process for the first time, if you're using the platform, like what's going on?
Yeah. So just at a high level, we've kind of redesigned our site a little bit in the last like 2 months or so, and that's because we are targeting a couple other market types. Traditionally, when you look at like Polymarket and Kalshi, I guess they are more like these types of markets that you talk about, like will Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson, and you have these yes no shares, or maybe a person has one of the outcomes and another person has a different outcome. Um, and so these are, I guess, in simple terms, like tradable markets or fluid markets. Whereas some other market types, if people go to Hedgehog Markets, they can see we have parlay, pooled, and soon we'll have versus. Those are more of like peer-to-peer bets. So it's more akin to like sports betting, where you might put $100 on one team to win, and you either lose that or you win and get the payout. But you're not trading in and out of that position up until the game. Um, so the prediction markets tab are AMM style markets. AMM just stands for automated market maker, but this is a fluid market. You can provide liquidity to the market, which is similar to providing liquidity or being a market maker in any other traditional, like, Sol USDC pair, for example. Um, and then these yes and no shares, the way you can look at these markets is, yes trading at 0.65 is representing a 65% chance of, Jake Paul beating Mike Tyson, whatever the market is about. And therefore no is representing a 35% chance that Jake Paul loses. Or, I think there's a couple things probably baked into that no if you read like the about description as to how it gets resolved. So like if the fight doesn't happen, it'll resolve to no. So you kind of have to incorporate that into the odds. But the idea is that all of these markets trade between $0 and $1, and based on whatever the cents are that they're trading at, those are the odds of something happening. So when you buy yes in this case right now, you can see sort of the total volume that's happened, roughly the amount of liquidity. The thing with the liquidity is, as you kind of buy and take the liquidity, the price impact will change. So, um, it automatically adjusts in these markets. And so the easiest thing to do is to just sort of click on like yes or go to the market page and input the dollar amount that you want to bet, and you'll see what the average price is and therefore what the estimated profit is. I think that's probably the best way for any user to look at that. But as you buy yes, obviously the price will go up depending on how much size you're getting and the available liquidity. The price may move more or less. And you can come back and sell those yes shares before the event even happens if the odds drastically change. So that's kind of the benefit of these AMM or even like CLOB, which is an order book style markets, is that people can sort of fluidly trade these markets. So I think they're better for longer term markets, such as presidential elections. Odds can change whenever there's a debate. If an outside event were to happen, obviously odds have changed in the past because of those events. And same thing with like the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. They might, release training videos or have an injury or whatever it is, and so like odds could change because of all of those things. But it allows people to fluidly trade these markets up to the event and time that they happen. But simply put, at a high level, you can buy and sell these yes no shares for a profit, or you can just buy yes shares and hold them all the way until the market resolves, after which you can claim $1 for every share that you hold if it is the correct outcome.
Awesome. Very clear. So with a lot of like, as you just mentioned, there's quite a lot of nuance between markets. Is will Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson? Is he going to knock him out? Is the fight actually going to happen? Like with these kind of like, as I said, the nuances of each market, how is the resolution resolved effectively? Like, is there like a arbiter of this? Like, how does that aspect of it work?
Yeah, so this is, I guess, the last part of that permissionless aspect of these markets that we've talked about. Um, we've actually built out our own. Well, I don't want to even call it our own. It's fully open source, but we've built out an optimistic oracle for Solana. I don't believe there is another one on Solana currently. This is similar to what Polymarket does. They use UMA as their optimistic oracle. And what an optimistic oracle is when a market gets created, we're referring to uh, basically like a data request happening on this optimistic oracle. So in this case, it's not live yet, but if it were live, when this market was made, will Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson? There would basically be a data request with details for that like given market. So you would provide sort of all of the details as to say, how do you want this resolved? So maybe you have a more specific market that says like, will Jake Paul knock out Mike Tyson? Right. So that would only resolve to yes if there's an actual knockout, not just the judges deciding that he's the winner. So the idea is that all of that should be within the details as to how that gets resolved when that data request is created. And then anybody can go to that oracle and propose an outcome once there is an outcome. And so this is, I guess, like economically incentivized for people to be correct by having a bond set up. So you might say, okay, you have to put up, 750 USDC or something, and you might win, $5 or $10 for providing that correct outcome. And if you're incorrect or people dispute it and it gets voted the other way, you would lose that $750 bond. So a much bigger like loss than what you would make, just by providing one incorrect, um, you know, set of data or results. And so this still, has its flaws, and the flaws typically come from users creating, or not even users, us or Polymarket or another prediction market platform, not taking into account black swan events, poorly wording something.
Mm,
um, yeah, and so this definitely has been a point of contention. This has happened with a handful of markets on Polymarket where there are millions of dollars on the line. Um, and I I guess at a high level, I don't know a great way around this, just because like black swan events are bound to happen. Um, and outliers that like you can't necessarily always think of or fathom or bake into an outcome when you go to create that market. And so then it kind of does come down to either, community sentiment, or in the case of our markets right now, they are, resolved by our team. And so there is a 24-hour resolution delay. Also, if you use UMA or an Oracle, you can basically set like a dispute window where if you think that the data provided is wrong, that can be changed. Um, but then kind of going back to um, the idea that we are building out different market types, that is one way we've kind of looked into how do we sort of solve this problem of these black swan events or outliers happening that we didn't think would happen, and letting users create markets, because one of the biggest problems with user generated markets is typically they haven't fully thought through all of this stuff. So it's, how do you sort of from the start set up an easy form for them to make a market that's fairly simplistic, but in the off chance that they word something incorrectly or are ambiguous with how it should be resolved, our new market types have an invalid option. And the reason that they can have this is because they are more peer to peer and they're not being fluidly traded. So when you have these fluidly traded markets where the prices change and people are getting in and out and providing liquidity and withdrawing liquidity, or setting limit orders on an order book, you end up with people that will get stuck in something. Um, and if you mark it invalid and the invalid outcome is, locking the prices at current prices, or maybe it resolves to 50-50, there's still someone that's going to like make money or lose money based on buying at other odds. And there's no real easy way around that because you can't unwind the trades. But with our peer-to-peer markets, our pooled or pari-mutuel markets, and another market type, which are our parlay markets, as I mentioned, they're more akin to sports betting, where we look at them as more shorter term. So you would do this, for example, like right around the election, you might set up peer to peer markets where you're literally just saying, I'm betting $100 to either win $100 from somebody else or lose my $100 that Trump will win. But the benefit here is that if there is some ambiguity in the resolution, we can mark that, or anybody can mark that invalid, and then every party just withdraws their funds. So you can always just kind of unwind any poorly worded market, even right after it's made, by just saying we're going to mark this invalid because as an oracle that's resolving the markets, or as an individual party that might be resolving the markets, it either doesn't make sense or we're not going to have enough like context here to be able to resolve this. Or maybe it's too hyper localized where it's like, you want to play basketball with a friend and you say, okay, well, let's play to, best of 3 games. Well, somebody across the world is going to have no idea how to resolve that market. So, that's probably better of just trusting each other and paying each other out if somebody wins or loses that match. So I think like if you get too hyper localized, it doesn't quite work. But as long as it's data that can kind of be verifiably or verified publicly, the idea is that we want to facilitate all of those styles of more peer to peer or peer to pool type betting, and let users make their own markets and then also resolve them using the optimistic oracle.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, when I was trying to run through it, I was thinking it must be, particularly if there's someone who's lost quite a bit, like, and there is some ambiguity there or some nuance, there could be like disputes and stuff. So, but you get that across every kind of market, I suppose. So
Yeah.
it's nothing new here, I suppose. Um, is there any information on what I see is grayed out as the versus tab? Is that not released yet, or
Yeah, we're actually I'm doing testing on that right now. So that will
okay?
be out hopefully within the next 2 weeks is what we're targeting, as long as we don't run into any big issues. I think at a high level, the easiest thing that people can uh, look at this market type is like the Kobe escrow service that people joke about on Twitter. You know how Kobe would escrow, like $1 million bet for people. The idea is that we can replace that, so you can use the programs that we've deployed on chain will act as the escrow itself, and then you can basically the optimistic oracle is what would resolve that market, so somebody can propose an outcome to that. I would say the added benefit is that now instead of just two parties setting up this $1 million bet and all these other people saying they want to participate but with less size, you can't really do that with Kobe because it obviously gets super annoying for a single entity to manage all of these funds and then send out payments to multiple people. So the way we've built it is I could set up a P2P bet, and say, I'm going to bet $1 million that Sol will be over $500 by February or something. So if it's trading over $500 on February 1st, I'm willing to bet $1 million that that is the case. And anybody who wants to bet against me, I can set those odds, and then anybody can come and take the other side of that. So it will sort of pair off my $1 million as people bet against me, and you would be
Okay.
able to withdraw funds at any point in time. So if at some point I was like, actually, maybe only $1,000 has been bet against my million, I could withdraw the remaining 999,000, but that
Yep.
$1,000 would still be a live bet with all of those people, um, and that would obviously get played out and resolved accordingly. But now anybody can take the other side of that. So it could be one person that takes the entire other side of that bet, or you could have 500 people that take the other side of that bet with whatever size they want. But it just pairs it off, at whatever odds that I set. And if somebody else wanted to say, okay, well, I want to bet the same way that Kyle's betting, I'm going to also bet $5,000 that Sol will be above 500. The idea in the future is to be able to have an easy button to basically copy all of the market details and set up your own bet, and that would just get displayed on our site as well. So, um,
Amazing.
yeah, it's just an easy way to facilitate peer-to-peer betting, for anything that you want to bet on, whether it's sports or betting on the price of Sol, or the Terra Luna collapse back in the day, and then letting anybody participate rather than just one other large counterparty.
That's great. There's so much kind of virality in that product. You should just be
Yeah, and
staring a load of beef on the timeline and saying, "Put your money where your mouth is."
yeah, exactly, and so that's also what we love about Blinks. The
I was
the
just
best
gonna
part about
say,
this is
I
like,
was just gonna say that's a
if
perfect fit.
yeah, so if a person like if Do Kwon wanted to do this bet back in the day, the idea is you could literally make that bet, put up your $1 million, so it's literally already escrowed on chain, ready to be bet against. And the benefit with Blinks now is that you can just take that market URL, paste it into a tweet, and when you share it, as long as other people have the actions on X enabled in their wallets, they would see that bet, and anybody could then bet any size against that, up until it obviously fills up. But I think that that's really powerful and cool. Whether it's just for again, like I said, sports betting. If you want to put $1,000 on the Eagles to win or whatever. Ansem is a big Eagles guy. He could literally place a $25,000 bet on our peer to peer platform. He could set the same odds as what Moneyline might be offering, or maybe even better, because he could get a better payout. The other team or the other side might be able to put up less depending on what it is, but kind of chisel that bid ask spread that market makers do. And now he can just post that on Twitter, and people can bet against him right on Twitter. And he has a big audience, so it'd be pretty easy for him to kind of get the size that he wants potentially just by sharing it right there. So he can bring that bet right to people, and not have to rely on people seeing it only on like our site or on a specific platform.
Awesome. I mean, there's so many times that could have been useful. Like any Sol Eve debate on timeline.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what I've always wondered, why no one's created a couple of markets really. Some way to bet on the market cap of USDT or USDC. I'd
Hmm.
like to see those kind of markets, and I'd also like to see. I think with Coinbase pushing CB BTC, then you wrap Bitcoin product. Like, could you effectively create futures markets around that? Will the market cap of CB BTC be over, I don't know, 1 billion by end of the year? Those kind of markets, would they kind of, because they'd be quite easy to resolve effectively, wouldn't they?
Yeah, yeah. I think you could do that as long as I mean USDT. I definitely know that that's public. I assume the CBBTC is as well. I guess there's been this again is where like the nuance can come into play, where it's like it sounds very simple, but like I thought about it for 2 more seconds. Wasn't there a lot of contention recently about
Where's the
like
transparency of
Coinbase
it?
actually having reserves? So it's like if they're spinning up this CBBTC product, like how can you prove that they are actually like holding BTC equivalent? And so that's where it comes down to, like, when you create the market, you really just have to word it specifically enough where it's like, okay, based on like the total supply of, I guess, CBBTC, like what market cap does that represent, regardless of like the actual underlying assets. But yeah, just like there's always that random like ambiguity where someone's going to try to bet on a technicality, and then they're going to be the one really upset about it, and it kind of ruins it for everybody. But I also see where they're coming from, where it's like if you provide very specific context in like a resolution, and then it happens, it's like, all right, well, you worded it that way, so that's how I'm going to bet. um and then that black swan event or the outlier thing happens, and you're like, okay, that's not how it was intended, but that is what I said. So then the question is, which way do you resolve it, based on intent or based on the actual like wording of it? And so that also draws contention. But yeah, I think those would definitely be interesting markets, and we might be able to spin something up for those.
Yeah, crypto. Any crypto-based lawyers should be licking their lips at potentially getting some cut of these markets.
Yeah, I mean that's also where it's like I go back to like the peer to peer markets that we're creating, and even the other market types that we have, where it's like you could set that up, and then if there is too much contention, or it is that like outlier case, like worst case is it gets marked invalid, and we're like, okay, there was ambiguity based on the question and then how it was resolved, and they sort of contradict, so it's just going to be marked invalid. So then that way nobody loses money. But obviously, you miss out on that, potential big win if there is that. So it's just like, as a user, do your own due diligence, and if it is too ambiguous, maybe it's worth making a new market with better wording or more specific wording, so that it can be resolved. But yeah, always one of the big nuances with prediction markets is the creation because of the wording, and then resolving things because some edge case happened, and it's like, well, we're not sure if this actually works anymore.
Is there any like if you got like an absolute Karen that kept disputing everything, is there any
Yeah.
is there any way to like track and monitor people who are just disputing shit for the sake of it?
Yeah, I mean, so that's obviously all viewable on chain. Like you could see the wallet that disputes it. However, the other thing is, people can sort of spin up as many wallets as they
Yeah.
want. So you could sort of do it from a different wallet, but you could kind of track the flow to see like, okay, is there any relationship between these wallets in any way? The other thing though is like you have to put up a bond to dispute a market. So whether you're proposing like the answer to a market, or once an answer has been, proposed, somebody can dispute that, and both of those wallets have to put up the same bond. So
Okay.
one of those wallets will then be losing the bond, whichever one is kind of voted to be incorrect. So there is, you are disincentivized from just disputing everything and trying to be malicious. And then, to that point as well, like with the voting system, to start, I think we still need to implement a couple of things, but the idea is figuring out like a good slashing mechanism to disincentivize people from voting incorrectly. Like in theory, everybody should vote the same way because there should be one known answer. And so how do you disincentivize people from voting incorrectly or being on like the wrong side of an outcome? Um, and so we've actually played around with using like a parimutuel market style to do so, where it's like any incorrect votes get sort of redistributed to the correct side as a
Mm.
potential outcome, or just doing some form of like a percentage slash, um, of how much you've used to like vote on certain markets. I think there's kind of benefits and drawbacks to all different ways. So it's just figuring out what is most optimal, or maybe even giving people that are using the Oracle the option of choosing, what type of slashing mechanism do they want for disputes on their data requests.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Kyle, thanks so much for your time. That was great. And anyone who wants to check out a little bit more, I'll leave the links in the description below. But yeah, just finally, what's next for you guys? What's apart from like the versus markets and things like that coming up? What's next?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the final market type that will be a big change and big push there. We are actually deploying all of our peer-to-peer and peer-to-pool style markets. So these would be the parlay tab, the pooled tab, and the versus tab. Those three market types will be or actually are live on Eclipse right now on mainnet. But user
Nice.
mainnet, I believe, is going live this month. So keep your eye out for those if you are, not necessarily a Solana maxi, or if you're everything maxi. Those markets will be ETH denominated. And obviously you'll be able to bridge from Solana and from Ethereum layer 1 to Eclipse. So if you want to check that out and play around with Eclipse a little bit, definitely do so. But as always, if people have feedback for these market types or have suggestions, feel free to let us know. And we're hoping to open up more user created markets as well very soon, where you can actually put up a fully customized market for whatever you want to bet on. And as mentioned, those will be through like our P2P platform and our pooled platform. That way, if things are worded wrong, we'll just mark them invalid. But hopefully people can get better at market creation. I think AI can maybe play a role in this, but that's kind of what we're most looking forward to.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for your time, man. And if you enjoyed that one, please give us a like, subscribe. Please check the links below, and we'll see you next time. Over and out.
Nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.